Divinity, as the first cause and spark of creation in its fullest expression, begets everything. Nothing exists outside of it. Nothing appears apart from it. Nothing is born without carrying its imprint. Yet, what we encounter in the world does not arrive as pure origin. It arrives as form. Between first cause and lived experience, something happens. An unfolding, a shaping, a movement from the unseen into the visible. This movement is not accidental. It follows order, it follows law, it follows coherence. The first cause does not create randomly. It expresses itself through gradation, from essence to energy, from energy to pattern, from pattern to form. From this movement, from essence into form, arise differences. Not differences in origin, but differences in configuration. When salt is used instead of sugar, the taste changes. When red is chosen instead of blue, the visual field shifts. When the body is fed one way rather than another, it responds accordingly. When movement is present or absent, the result is not the same. Even natural advantage does not override law. One person may carry greater innate talent, yet another, through consistent application, will surpass them. Not because the source favored one over the other, but because repetition shapes form. The source remains unchanged. The outcome does not. This is how law operates. What we think, desire, and enact are not abstract. They are inputs. And inputs, when repeated, shape patterns. Patterns shape form. Form produces experience. Even when people stand within the same structure, the same family, the same belief system, the same organization, outcomes differ because participation differs. Not everyone brings the same configuration to the field. This is not judgment, it is mechanics. What we touch, what we see, and what we name is not separate from divinity. It is divinity expressed. But expression always carries limitation. Even when the source is the same, expression is shaped by what receives it. We can each be given the same script, the same piece of music, the same sentence to turn into prose. Yet what emerges will not be identical. Not because the source has changed, but because each expression is filtered through what is already present, what we bring to the table, our temperament, our capacity, our discipline, our experience, our orientation. All of this flavors how form takes shape. The origin remains pure. The expression is particular. The expression is circumstance specific. Each expression carries the imprint of how divinity is met in that moment. Difference does not mean wrong. There are many ways to do the same thing once the why of the action is aligned. This is how unity gives rise to diversity without division. Form is opportunity, potentially beautiful, depending on how it is met. It is where the first cause agrees to be knowable, agrees to be known and experienced, all within the context of its expression. It is where boundlessness consents to edges, the edges of time, the edges of capacity, the edges of perspective, and the edges of our limitation. Form is where potential chooses a particular way of being seen. Each expression carries the flavor of the one through whom it passes. Potential does not exist to be admired. It is not an ornament. It exists to be expressed. What appears is not the fullness of what could be, but what our capacity and the circumstance can carry, shape, and sustain. Potential does not disappear when it is not realized. It remains, awaiting conditions that allow it to take form. What we encounter then is not the limit of what is possible, but the portion of possibility that has found a way to appear. This is not loss. It is not translation. And misunderstanding begins when we mistake the form for the source, reading limitation as absence rather than context, forgetting that what appears is shaped by capacity, circumstance, and engagement, not by the diminishment of the first cause. The form that appears is a direct result of our engagement. We do not create from nothing. We shape what has already been given, using the tools inherent to creation itself.